procrastinate a lot. Most things in my life, actually. If there's something that needs to get done and I'm given a month to do it, I'm going to do it in like 2 or 3 days. And it's not because I'm a genius and that I can just do tasks so quickly. It's because I panic rush them, spend way too much time and effort trying to make up for lost time instead of taking the task bit by bit, progressively, and making my life so much easier. And when you're looking at the psychology of why we procrastinate, typically people fall into 2 different categories. They're the people who are lazy and the people who are perfectionists. And I would like to think that I'm more of the perfectionist kind of person. So here's the thing. I talk a lot on YouTube about how hard it is for me to hit the record button. And the main reason for why that is because I am a perfectionist. And it's really frustrating when you want to do everything super well, because it actually stops you from working on the process and failing to be able to get better at a task. I was the kind of kid growing up where if I wasn't naturally good at what I was doing, I would just stop doing it. I played a lot of sports as a kid. I did soccer, t-ball, baseball. I did wrestling, track. I did a whole lot of different sports. And you might notice that you can't do all the sports at once. So what would happen is I would do something like basketball, and I would do that for a few years and stop and do baseball and so on and so on and so on. And it's because I wasn't the best on the team. I didn't get the position that I wanted. I wasn't the star of the show. And maybe that's like an only child syndrome kind of thing, where because I didn't have siblings, I didn't acknowledge, like, I'm not the center of the universe. Whatever it might be. I gave up really quickly and easily, and it turns out that once you do a task over and over again, you get better at it. So even if you're not a natural genius at what you're doing, you will eventually see some improvements. And it took me a long time to mature enough to understand that. So as a perfectionist, if I couldn't do something really, really well, I just wouldn't do it at all, because the fear of failure and the fear of acknowledging that I'm not as good or as smart or as talented as I think that I am, it really held me back a lot. So I would procrastinate a lot in school because I'm a perfectionist. If I had an essay to write, I didn't want to start it and then have it not be good. So I would just put it off. I would just wait. And then all of a sudden, I have like a day or two till the deadline, and I have to get it done regardless. And what happens is I become super focused. I get the task done. However, when I look back, the task wasn't done as well as it could have been. In fact, it was actually done pretty poorly and sloppily. Sure, I'd still get good marks on it because although I'm not the most intelligent person on the planet, I'm pretty good at writing essays. But as a perfectionist, I was never proud of my work. I just did it to do it, but I didn't actually take the time to really absorb what I was doing, to acknowledge what I was doing, and to appreciate what I was doing at the time. When I've worked jobs in the past, and I didn't feel like I was doing a good job, I would work harder at it. And the reason why is because jobs to me are much higher stakes than education, because again, you can fail at education and you can bounce back. When you fail at a job, you lose your job. And I became really good at working in the movie theater industry. Near the end of my time at the gym, I was actually a pretty okay salesman. I wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but I was pretty okay. The first time I was a manager, I wasn't very great. The second time I've been a manager, I'm doing better. It's because I've allowed myself the room to fail. I forgive myself for failing, and I move on with the mistakes that I've made, and I become better as a result. But for some reason when I was younger, I just couldn't do that with schooling. And maybe it was lack of maturity, lack of life experience. There's a lot of different things that it could have been. But regardless, what I wish I could go back and tell myself when I was younger is that it's okay to not be great at something, do good enough, and work on being better. And once you get to that point where you're not afraid of failure, where you can do a task and acknowledge that it's not going to be the best piece of work on the planet, but it's going to be better than what you did last time, that's when you start becoming great. Because we're not going to be born incredibly talented and perfect at every single thing we do. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. My current father talks about playing to your strengths. And although I'm against the idea of pigeonholing, he makes a really great point. You can be good at something, but you're not going to become the best at something until you foster that talent. And once you hit the wall where you have to start putting effort in, it would be a waste of your potential to not keep working at it when you start failing. As a manager, I've made mistakes, and I will continue to make mistakes going forward. But because I've made those mistakes and I've learned from them, although I'm not a perfect manager, I'm significantly better than I was a year ago. And next year, I'll be even better than I am now. And once you figure that system out, you will become so much more of a whole person. Sure, you might not be the next genius, not the next Elon Musk. You're not going to be the next Usain Bolt and be the best runner on the planet. You're not going to be the next LeBron James and play basketball to the highest degree. But you don't have to. You have to keep competing with yourself and stop competing with people around you. That's what procrastination really is. You're basically losing to yourself every single time you put off something. And once you realize that being a perfectionist is actually a pretty negative trait in most industries, that's whenever you can start moving forward with your life. Now, sure, if you're a doctor or a surgeon, you're going to have to be a perfectionist because you're literally having people's lives in your hands. But doctors and surgeons aren't naturally gifted at saving people's lives. They do 4 to 8 to 10 years of schooling and residency to get to the point where they can save lives. It doesn't matter how much of a genius they were, they still have to go through the process. So don't be the kind of person who quits because things get hard. Be the kind of person who looks forward when things get hard, because that's where the real improvement comes from. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you know somebody who's a procrastinator, feel free to share this video to them as a good F off. And do not forget to keep casual.